The version of me you abused no longer exists, so stop expecting mercy from my evolution. Let that sit in your gut like a punch laced with everything you thought I'd tolerate forever. Here's the truth. You weren't scared of losing me. You were scared of me finding me. You were terrified of the day I'd rise from your gaslighting graveyard and start breathing fire instead of begging for peace. And guess what? That day has arrived. You see, I didn't just change, I transformed. While you were still feeding off the expired version of me, I was out here crafting a newer, sharper, untouchable form. And it wasn't some soft self-love phase either. It was a full-blown soul rebirth. No glitter, no incense, just grit. Raw, relentless, universe-backed grit. This isn't about mood swings, it's about codes. I upgraded mine, and now your access has been permanently revoked. You thought I'd reset for you? Nah. This is permanent lockdown. Call it ego, call it drama. But deep down, you know exactly what it is. It's power. Let me be crystal clear, I'm not the villain. I just finally stopped playing the fool in your emotionally rigged game show. I stopped offering grace to those who used it like a weapon, and now suddenly everyone's uncomfortable. Good. Stay uncomfortable. Sit in the silence where my forgiveness used to live. Feel the weight of my absence like gravity on your chest. Because this isn't revenge. This is alignment. Before we go deeper, do your part. If this message strikes something real in you, or if you know someone still crawling through the fire of their own evolution, hit like and subscribe. It's not about hype. It's about healing. Help this reach the ones who need the reminder. You're not crazy for becoming unrecognizable to those who only knew how to love your weakness. We owe it to each other to spread this light. Now, let's talk real. Welcome to the era of the chosen one, but not the fantasy version they thought they could control, not the soft-spoken empath who never said no, not the self-sacrificing soul who kept shrinking just to make everyone else comfortable. This version, this one is unapologetically armored. You shocked them, you shook them, and not because you got loud, but because you got clear, because now your silence has weight, your no carries thunder, your energy, it's so sharp it cuts through manipulation like glass. They don't know how to act around you now because the old script doesn't work anymore. They signed up for the discount version of you, the emotionally cheap, spiritually exhausted, always forgiving version. They never expected the moment you'd finally see yourself. And when you did, you didn't just set a boundary. You built a fortress. You installed a firewall coded in truth. And now they're getting 403 errors just trying to reach you. And let's be honest, they're not mad because you changed. They're mad because you stopped letting them benefit from your pain. They're mad because your peace is no longer available for casual consumption. You used to let them drink from your spirit like it was a public fountain. Now, access denied. You're not cold, you're calculated, you're not bitter, you're boundaried. There's a difference between being mean and finally meaning what you say. You've reached that level where even your silence is louder than their loudest guilt trips. But here's the kicker. They need you now more than ever, not because of what you give, but because of who you've become. You're magnetic, you're aligned, you're living proof that you can burn and still come out golden. And deep down, even your enemies can't help but respect the glow-up. They talk, but they watch. They hate, but they study. Why? Because they never expected the quiet one to become the force. You're not even in your final form yet. This is just the trailer. The real movie hasn't even dropped, and they're already shaking. That's what happens when someone who was underestimated for too long finally remembers who the hell they are. That's what happens when the universe taps you and says, "Your turn." So let them whisper. Let them twist your boundaries into bad character. Let them throw shade on your shine. Just remember, you didn't evolve for applause. You evolved for yourself. You stopped surviving and started commanding. And now, they're all asking the same question. WTF have you become? Here's the answer. Unbreakable, untouchable, and absolutely unforgettable. And no, this isn't the end. This is where it really gets uncomfortable and powerful. Because if you've made it this far, something inside you already knows. You're not who you used to be. You've become the version of yourself they never saw coming. So if you're done shrinking, done explaining, and done being emotionally looted, drop the number 777 in the comments. That's how we know you're one of the rare few ready to own your new code. And now, let's break it all down, step by step. If you're a real one, you'll feel it in your bones. Let's get into it. Number 1, they used to rule your gates. Now they're crying at the fence like exiled kings. Funny how the same people who treated you like an option are now pissed they're not your priority. That's not ego, that's balance being restored. You used to be the one standing outside, hands out, heart wide open, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally let you into their world. Their approval, their conditional respect. You thought that if you just loved harder, bent further, made yourself smaller, quieter, nicer, they'd finally see you. That maybe, just maybe, your pain would earn you a seat at their table. But here's the part they didn't see coming. You weren't breaking, you were sharpening, and when you finally snapped, it wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. Your silence turned into sovereignty. You stopped knocking, you became the gate. And now, they're the ones outside, watching, wondering, seething. They don't know how to handle it, because the same court they used to dominate now demands permission just to be acknowledged. The door doesn't swing open anymore. The vibe check is real. And guess what? Most of them fail it miserably. They say you've changed. Damn right you have. What they call attitude is just you finally choosing standards. What they call ego is simply your awareness waking up from a coma they were comfortable keeping you in. You used to crave their validation like oxygen. But now you realize your own breath was always enough. It hurts them, oh, it burns them, because when you stopped begging, they lost the game they thought they'd always win. They used to pull strings because you were too afraid to cut them. They used to give you crumbs because they knew you'd turn them into meals. They knew you didn't know your worth, and they were thriving off it. But then something shifted. You saw through the illusion. You realized the pedestal they stood on was one you built. And once you stopped feeding it, the whole thing crumbled. That's when the panic started. That's when the manipulation got louder. The guilt trips, the you've changed speeches, the fake concern wrapped in passive-aggressive commentary. No, you didn't change, you upgraded, and they can't download the new software because it doesn't run on manipulation anymore. This is what happens when a chosen one finally stops shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You took back the keys, you rewrote the access codes, you replaced the open door policy with a damn fortress. And now they're banging on the gates with tears in their eyes, pretending they miss you, when really they miss the version of you that didn't know how to say no. Why are you being so cold now? Because warm got me burned. Why are you cutting people off? Because I'm not handing out free passes to people who charged me for loyalty. Why are you so distant? Because peace lives on the other side of distance from dysfunction. See, they loved you when you were easy to use, when you were unsure, when you were looking up at them with starved eyes, asking to be chosen. But now you're looking inward. You're not waiting to be chosen. You are the chosen. And that threatens everything they built off your insecurity. They never loved you. They loved the power over you. And that's the hardest pill to swallow, but the most freeing one too. You were never meant to be everyone's go-to. You were never supposed to bleed every time someone else had a paper cut. You were conditioned to believe that love meant sacrifice, that access was automatic, and that loyalty had no boundaries. But you woke up. And now you are the judge, the gatekeeper, the final say. You've become the exact thing they never expected, self-aware. That's the kind of glow-up no apology can reverse. That's the kind of shift you don't come back from. Don't you dare feel guilty for this. This isn't cruelty. This is clarity. You're not cold. You're focused. You're not bitter. You're better. You didn't abandon them. They abandoned accountability. And now that the favor train has stopped running and the door isn't swinging open on demand, they don't know how to handle the silence. They're mad because they can't reach you. They're lost because your boundaries broke their GPS. You want to know why they're really shaken? Because your evolution is loud without you saying a damn word. You walk differently, think differently. You don't flinch anymore. You don't chase, you choose. And they're not on the list. They're not used to rejection from someone they thought they owned. Let that sink in. They expected to walk in and out of your life like a revolving door, but you ripped that door off the hinges and replaced it with walls. Walls made of every sleepless night, every manipulated moment, every ounce of dignity you lost, trying to be enough. Now they're faced with the truth they never wanted to see. You were the one with the power all along. So no, you're not cruel. You're just done being consumed. You've turned your energy into premium currency, and not everyone gets to cash in. If they want access, they better come correct, because the court is in session, and baby, you're the judge now. And what's wild, you haven't even shown them your final form. Keep going, keep evolving, keep the gate locked and your energy clean. This is your era now. Chosen one. Damn. WTF have you become? You've become everything they swore you never would, and you did it without permission. Let them choke on it. Number 2, your no used to whisper. Now it hits like thunder and leaves egos bleeding. The old me said yes out of fear. The new me says no out of power. If that burns your ego, step back. This fire ain't for you. Let's get something straight. Your no is no longer a suggestion. It's a verdict, a divine decree, a power move soaked in silence and certainty. And the ones who used to control you with guilt? Yeah, they're choking on it now. There was a time when your no came trembling, wrapped in apology, wearing guilt like a noose. You'd say maybe when you meant never. You'd say, I'll think about it, when your soul was already screaming, hell no. Why? Because you were taught to make everyone else comfortable, even if it meant betraying yourself. But now your no walks in the room like a damn earthquake, calm, controlled, final, and it doesn't just close doors, it shatters illusions. The illusion that you were available on demand, the illusion that your peace was for rent, the illusion that access to your energy came without rules. They're not reacting to the no itself, they're reacting to the authority behind it, the way it lands like a gavel in a courtroom, not up for appeal. Your no carries weight now because it's no longer laced with fear, it's rooted in self-respect. And that's what's shaking them. You used to hand out yes like it was free candy, sweet, addictive, and destined to rot your spirit. People got drunk off your compliance. They built thrones out of your silence, altars out of your sacrifice. They thrived on your inability to set a line in the sand. But now, the candy's gone, the altar is burned, and the throne vacant. Because your no doesn't tremble anymore, it commands. Let me break it down. This isn't about being rude. This isn't about turning cold. This is about cleansing. You're not rejecting them. You're reclaiming you. They call it attitude. They call it selfish. But let's call it what it really is. Emotional exorcism. You're casting out years of manipulation with a single syllable. You're purging the ghosts of guilt that used to haunt your every decision. Every time you say no without explanation, without flinching, without the need to soften the blow, you're performing a spiritual detox. And it hurts them, not because you're wrong, but because for once, they can't find the handle to twist your will. Why are you being so difficult? Translation: why aren't you easy to use anymore? Why are you so cold now? Translation: why isn't your guilt working on me like it used to? Why can't you just say yes like before? Translation: why can't you go back to being someone I could walk over without resistance? Here's the answer: because I know who the hell I am now. You're not the same person who tolerated disrespect under the mask of keeping the peace. You're not the one who gave and gave until you became a ghost in your own life. That version of you, dead and buried. This version, your no, is sacred. It's a boundary wrapped in healing. It's a gate reinforced with steel, not shame. And it's not personal, it's protective. You're not pushing people away. You're pulling your power back. They feel the shift, even if they won't say it out loud. That quiet tension when you don't rush to say yes. That awkward silence when you decline something without offering a 10-minute apology monologue. That unspoken discomfort when you hold your ground instead of making yourself smaller. You've become unreadable to those who were fluent in your self-doubt. And that's exactly why they're spiraling. Because your clarity, your clean, calm, unapologetic no is something they can't manipulate. They can't guilt trip it. They can't love bomb it. They can't twist it into something they can use against you. And in that moment, they're not just losing control over your decisions. They're losing control over their illusion of dominance. That's what really burns. You're teaching people, whether they like it or not, that your soul has standards, that your time has value, that your energy isn't some faucet they can turn on and off at their convenience. You're not just rejecting requests, you're rejecting their version of you, the one who never challenged, never questioned, never said enough. Your no is now a mirror. And baby, mirrors are dangerous. They show people what they don't want to see. Your refusal forces them to confront the entitlement they called love. It exposes the imbalance they pretended was mutual care. It reveals the truth they worked hard to keep hidden, that their power only worked when you didn't know your own. Well, guess what? Now you do. And you're not afraid to use it. They can call it whatever they want. They can spread rumors, say you've changed, say you're cold-hearted, bitter, arrogant. Let them talk. Their words can't reach past the fortress you've built. You've outgrown the need for validation from people who never really saw you in the first place. You are not responsible for the way your healing offends the ones who benefited from your suffering. So the next time you say no, don't flinch, don't backtrack, don't explain. Let it echo, let it sting, let it teach. Your no is no longer a soft retreat. It's a righteous act. It's a boundary. It's a ceremony. A spiritual reminder that your peace is not up for auction and your energy is not a community playground. Let them feel what they made you feel. Powerless, confused, rejected. not out of revenge, but out of balance. This isn't about being petty. This is about setting the universal scales right. Your healing demands it. And here's the real kicker. The ones who truly value you, they won't flinch at your no. They'll respect it. They'll honor it, because they're not here for access. They're here for alignment. So let your no be loud. Let it be fierce. Let it be final when needed. You didn't come this far to become palatable again. You came to be free. Chosen one. Damn. WTF have you become? You've become someone who doesn't betray themselves to be liked. You've become someone who says no with sacred certainty. And most of all, you've become unshakable. Number 3. You didn't just heal, you upgraded your soul's firewall and made your spirit hacker-proof. They thought I was healing for them. I was healing from them. And now, their tricks crash like viruses against the firewall of my evolution. This wasn't some cute, filtered, self-care Sunday kind of healing. You didn't light candles and post quotes while sipping tea. You went to war, a war nobody saw, a war where the battlefield was your own mind, and the enemy wore familiar faces. Family, lovers, friends, versions of you that begged for crumbs just to feel seen. This wasn't healing. This was survival. This was a total system upgrade, line by line, soul by soul. They thought you were just going through a phase, that you'd bounce back into your old patterns eventually, available, agreeable, easy to influence. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't just healing. You were coding, encrypting your soul, building a system that would no longer allow malware energy to slip through the cracks. Your peace, it's not just protected now, it's fortified. The same way governments build firewalls to protect against threats, you did that with your spirit. And now, people try to run the same emotional scripts. They send in their usual viruses, guilt trips, backhanded compliments, fake concern, half-hearted check-ins, just to find a way back into your energy field. And they bounce hard. Your silence has become sacred. Your distance, surgical. You don't hate them, you just see them. You see the baggage they bring, the manipulation they mask as love, the entitlement they wear like perfume. And you refuse to let that walk through the doors of your healed space, because wisdom taught you something pain never could. Access is not love, and availability is not proof of care. People hated Malcolm X until they feared his clarity. They exiled Nina Simone for speaking her truth. They labeled Muhammad Ali arrogant when he said he was the greatest, then later bowed to that same confidence. They hated those who installed boundaries because boundaries broke the spell of control, just like you did. So when they say, "You're different now," let them say it with a sting. That's the sound of your firewall doing its job. You're not cold, you're secure. Number 4, you didn't push them away. You just became the mirror that showed their rot. I didn't change to hurt you. I changed to heal me. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself what part of you my growth exposed. Let's make this clear once and for all. You didn't lose people because you became mean. You didn't become heartless. You didn't turn bitter. You became accurate. You became a mirror. And suddenly, the people who were comfortable in your chaos couldn't stand their reflection anymore. They loved you when you were broken because your brokenness made them feel whole. They needed you to overextend, to over-apologize, to keep giving until you had nothing left but fumes and fake smiles. And when you stopped doing that, when you pulled back the curtain and started reflecting instead of absorbing, they panicked. Because your clarity became confrontation, not the kind you yell, but the kind you embody. Just your presence now holds up a mirror to their dysfunction. You no longer respond to manipulation. You no longer react to guilt. You just see it, and that alone is enough to collapse their entire strategy. They weren't ready for your peace to be so loud. They weren't prepared for your silence to scream. Because now, when they try to play victim or bait you into fixing their chaos, all they hear is the sound of their own dysfunction bouncing off the walls of your distance. That silence. It used to be filled with your self-sacrifice, your explanations, your late-night pep talks, your endless attempts to be enough. But now, it's filled with accountability, and that's the one language manipulators don't speak. You're no longer the emotional crutch. You're not the fixer. You're not the therapist they didn't pay for. You're not the sponge for their unhealed wounds. You're the damn mirror. And you don't flinch when they flinch. You don't bend when they break. You simply stand, reflecting, radiating truth. And that's what makes you dangerous to the people who only knew how to thrive when you stayed broken. They're not running from you. They're running from the version of themselves they can't hide from when they stand beside your healed presence. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They didn't lose you. They lost access to the mask you used to wear to protect them from their own reflection. Keep standing. Keep reflecting. Let them face their own rot. Number 5. You stopped bleeding just to keep their demons warm, and now they call you cruel. I was never too much. I was just too available to people who were never supposed to have that much access to my soul. Let's call it for what it was. You weren't loved. You were used. Not in the obvious way. No, it was subtle, psychological, dressed in pretty lies, and wrapped in guilt-laced praise. You were the strong one, the understanding one, the selfless one. But behind those titles was a quiet demand. Suffer silently so I don't have to face myself. And for too long, you complied. You swallowed your pain like poison and smiled through the ache. You made your back the foundation of other people's chaos. When they couldn't carry their weight, you held it. When they couldn't face their truth, you buried yours. You made your own bleeding body the cushion for their comfort. But here's what they never expected. You woke up. You finally realized that every time you said yes to their dysfunction, you were saying no to your healing. Every time you absorbed their pain, you delayed your own peace. And that quiet scream inside you, it became unignorable. So you stopped. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You stopped shrinking so others could feel tall in their illusions. You stopped making your spirit their shelter when all they ever did was track dirt through your soul. And now they call you cold, distant, selfish, cruel, not because you changed, but because you finally became unavailable to be drained. You're not the sponge anymore. You're the standard. You're the boundary they never thought you'd have the strength to enforce. You're the one who finally put the scissors down and said, "I'm not cutting myself just so you can sleep better at night." It stings them. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you did something different. You stopped playing the martyr. And when a chosen one stops bleeding for validation, the entire power dynamic implodes. This isn't bitterness. This is balance. Let them call you cruel if it helps them cope. Just know this: the ones who once fed off your sacrifice will never understand your boundaries, but they'll damn sure feel them. And that's the point. Number 6, you went from "please pick me" to "prove you deserve the privilege." I no longer audition for roles in people's lives. Either you recognize the value or lose the opportunity. I'm not begging to be seen ever again. There was a time when your energy whispered desperation, not because you were weak, but because you were conditioned, trained to believe that your worth needed a witness. So you performed, you overextended, you became a shapeshifter in your own story just to be accepted in someone else's. You softened your tone to make others feel bigger. You shrunk your brilliance so they could shine without competition. You waited, you hoped, you begged with your kindness, with your silence, with your ability to tolerate nonsense no one else would even entertain. But now your energy hits like a force field. It no longer says, "Please like me." It says, "Prove you're qualified." You don't chase. You don't decode mixed signals. You don't wait around to be chosen like some spiritual consolation prize. You observe, and if the vibe feels off, even slightly, you bounce with no hesitation, no explanation, and zero guilt. This shift, it's not about ego, it's about evolution. You finally realize that your peace is the most sacred currency you have, and not everyone deserves access to that vault. You're no longer handing out emotional VIP passes to people who treat your soul like a waiting room. You don't chase energy now, you check it. You don't fantasize about potential, you watch patterns. And if someone's presence drains you more than it feeds you, they're gone before they even know what hit them. This isn't being too much. This is what happens when someone's tired of being too little for too long. You've raised your frequency, and naturally that filtered the room. And now they say, "You're acting different." Damn right. You're not explaining your worth to people who need a translator just to understand basic respect. This new version of you, it doesn't negotiate with low vibrations. It doesn't compromise for the sake of comfort. It doesn't beg for crumbs at tables you were born to own. So let them feel intimidated. Let them stumble on their words. Let them fall off when they realize they can't manipulate you through insecurity anymore. Because this energy, it doesn't plead, it qualifies. Number 1. You're not acting brand new, you're just finally acting like you belong here. I'm not acting different, I'm just no longer apologizing for existing in my full form. If that offends you, step aside. This space was never meant for your comfort. Let's shut the noise down right now. No, you're not arrogant, you're not ungrateful, you're not acting brand new. You're just finally showing up in the skin that was always yours, without asking anyone for permission to own it. They say you've changed, and damn right, you had to. Because the old version of you, that one was dying, starving for air, drowning in people-pleasing, self-editing and quiet survival mode. You wore fake humility like armor, hoping they'd respect you for shrinking. But all it got you was disrespect in return. You kept your head down while people trampled your spirit, and you still got called too much when you finally spoke up. But something snapped, didn't it? Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You realized that the real danger wasn't losing them. It was losing you, losing your voice, your fire, your essence, just to keep peace that only served them. Now, you're not playing small to protect egos. You're not swallowing your truth to keep relationships alive that were built on your silence. You're not putting a price tag on your presence and handing out discounts for the sake of being liked. Because you finally understood, being liked is nothing compared to being whole. You don't move with fear anymore. You move with presence, with unapologetic energy that doesn't ask for validation. And that's exactly why they're uncomfortable. You see, they were never afraid of your darkness. They were afraid of your light. Because when you light up fully, their shadows get exposed. They don't know how to handle this new you, because this new you doesn't bend. This new you doesn't over-explain. This new you doesn't let insecure people write reviews on a life they'll never understand. So when they say, "You've changed," let them, because what they really mean is, you're no longer manageable. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not arrogant. You're anchored. You're not new. You're finally real. And for the first time ever, you're living like you deserve to fully exist. Number 7. They never expected the day you'd choose you. Now they're screaming at a door you locked from the inside. They loved the version of you that chose them at your own expense. Now that you've chosen yourself, they're calling it betrayal. Nah, it's a homecoming. You were always the reliable one, the one who bent so others wouldn't break, the one who rearranged your own heartbeat just to keep someone else's rhythm steady. You showed up when they disappeared. You gave when you had nothing left. You stayed when everything in you was screaming to run. They got used to it, entitled to it, dependent on your self-abandonment. So when you finally chose you, when you stopped explaining, stopped sacrificing, stopped saying yes when your soul was suffocating, they didn't just get confused, they got offended. Because let's be real, they weren't loving you. They were feeding off your lack of boundaries. They didn't admire your loyalty. They depended on your inability to say no. You weren't just present, you were possessed. Not by them, but by this dangerous belief that your worth was tied to how much of yourself you could give away. But now your heart has come home to you. And baby, it's loud. You're no longer available on demand, no longer adjusting yourself like furniture to make them more comfortable. You finally stepped into your own light, not to be admired, but to be aligned. And those who only knew how to love the you who disappeared for them, they're gasping for air without your energy to inhale. They say, "You've changed." Translation, "You're no longer convenient." They say, "You're selfish now." Translation, "I can't guilt you into forgetting yourself anymore." Choosing yourself was never the crime. Their shock is just evidence of how deeply they benefited from your self-neglect. But this isn't cruelty. This is correction. You're not rejecting love. You're redefining it. And anything that demands your silence, your exhaustion, your absence from your own life just to survive, that was never love. That was survival dressed up as connection. Now they're pounding on doors that no longer open, crying about the space you reclaimed as if it wasn't yours from the start. You didn't turn your back on them, you turned toward you. And that's the most sacred thing you've ever done. Number 8. Your silence became the sermon, and it's tearing down their illusions, brick by brick. My silence isn't revenge. It's revelation. I left quietly so they could finally hear what my presence was drowning out, their own dysfunction. You didn't go quiet because you were angry. You didn't detach to play games. You didn't fade out to prove a point. You disconnected because your energy was being wasted like water poured into broken hands. You got tired of bleeding for chaos, tired of repeating yourself to people who only listened when you were serving their comfort. So you did the one thing they never expected. You disappeared without a show. No drama, no final speech, no slamming doors, just a soul-level exit. And now that silence is screaming in their ears, louder than your loyalty ever did. Because you didn't just leave, you took the emotional supply with you. You were their battery, their lifeline, their personal fuel station of validation, reassurance, forgiveness. You held space they never deserved. You calmed storms they started. You made excuses for behavior that should have exiled them from your world a long time ago. And now that you're gone, that detachment is hitting them like spiritual withdrawal. Because silence is honest. And your absence is echoing through their illusions, exposing everything they tried to hide behind your loyalty. They used to ignore your pain, but now they can't ignore your absence. They used to dismiss your needs, but now they're starving without your energy. And here's the cruel irony for them. You didn't just walk away, you took the light with you. Your detachment wasn't an ending, it was an awakening, not just for you, but for them, because now they have to face themselves without your spirit cushioning their every misstep. Now they have to stare into the cold mirror you used to soften with your constant presence. They thought your worth was in your words, but now they realize your silence was the loudest truth you ever gave them. You've become the ghost they can't stop chasing, not because you owe them anything, but because they never learned how to live without feeding on your fire. And now, the fire's gone, the warmth is gone, you are gone, and that's what finally broke them. Number 9. You stopped letting love be the excuse for disrespect disguised as care. If your love needs me to bleed, shrink, or bend my truth, keep it. That's not love, that's control with a pretty name. You've been through enough to know by now, real love doesn't demand your boundaries disappear. Real love doesn't twist loyalty into silence or forgiveness into a permission slip for repeated disrespect. You've seen what fake love looks like. It smiles wide, talks sweet, and crumbles the moment you dare to protect yourself. And you used to fall for it. The charm, the promises, the well-timed I love yous right after they crossed another line. You mistook it all for depth, for connection, for proof that maybe, just maybe, they cared. But you've grown now. You've woken up. You've seen behind the curtain. And what you found was this. A lot of people don't love you. They love the version of you that doesn't challenge them, the version that overgives, overforgives, overcompensates for their lack of character. That version, dead. Now, you're not impressed by smooth words. You don't care how well someone can say the right thing. You want consistency, integrity, follow-through. You're not moved by declarations, you're watching the patterns. And if their love needs you to erase your boundaries to feel accepted, that's not love. That's manipulation wearing perfume. You don't argue anymore. You don't explain why the boundary exists. You don't try to convince anyone that you deserve to be respected. Your boundary is the conversation, and if someone can't meet you at that level, they can exit quietly and permanently, because now you know love without honor is just emotional warfare. If they can't love the whole version of you, including your limits, your clarity, your no, then they never loved you at all. They loved what they could extract. They say, "But I love you." And you say, "Then why does your love feel like an invasion?" They say, "Can't you just let this go?" And you say, "Why do you expect love to come at the cost of my self-respect?" Your love has matured, your heart has grown teeth, and your soul now comes with terms and conditions. Let them call you difficult, let them call you guarded. You're not cold, you're just done letting love become a Trojan horse for disrespect. Because if love can't honor your boundaries, it was never love in the first place. Number 10, you stopped explaining yourself to the unworthy. Now let them drown in their assumptions. Let them misunderstand you. Let them twist your silence, misread your distance, and invent their own stories. Your peace is not up for debate, and your truth doesn't need a press conference. You used to over-explain. You'd write emotional essays to people who skimmed your pain. You'd bend your voice, dilute your truth, and tie your intentions up in ribbons, just so they wouldn't get the wrong idea. You wanted so badly to be understood, not because you were weak, but because you were heart-led. But what did it ever get you? Misinterpretation, manipulation, and worst of all, exhaustion. So now, you don't bother. You don't correct the rumors. You don't clarify the silence. You don't try to reshape their perception like your identity depends on it. Because it doesn't. You realized that no amount of explaining will satisfy someone who chooses to misunderstand you. And the people who actually care, they don't need a paragraph to feel your truth. They know it in their bones. They've watched you show up. They've seen the pattern, not just the moment. So let them think what they want. Let them call you cold. Let them say you've changed, that you've switched up, that you're acting brand new. You're not. You've just outgrown the version of yourself that lived on their approval. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because now you see the cost of explaining yourself to the wrong people. It's your peace. And that peace, it's priceless. You're not a puzzle for them to solve. You're not a broadcast. You're not a broken code needing validation. You're a whole frequency, and if they don't tune in properly, that's their static, not your problem. This evolution didn't make you bitter. It made you still. Still enough to know the power of restraint. Still enough to choose presence over proving. Still enough to walk away from any room where you feel the need to shrink just to be understood. Let them decode someone else. You're done performing. You're not cold. You're not distant. You're just finally quiet in your power. And if that rattles them, good. You were never meant to be their explanation. You were born to be the standard. Number 11. You finally saw that being too nice was just another way you betrayed yourself. They didn't love your kindness. They loved your compliance. The moment your niceness required respect, they called it attitude. You used to wear nice like it was your identity, always agreeable, always patient, always bending. You thought being endlessly kind would protect you from being hurt, that if you just gave more, tolerated more, forgave faster, they'd finally treat you right, that your overgiving would earn you value. But here's the truth you were never taught. Being too nice without boundaries isn't noble. It's self-betrayal. You weren't being kind. You were abandoning yourself in plain sight. You gave until you were empty, smiling through exhaustion, offering your time, your energy, your forgiveness, hoping someone, anyone would notice, that maybe they'd pour back into you, that maybe they'd say, "You've done enough, rest." But they never did. Because the people who benefit from your self-neglect never ask you to stop. They just take more. And that's when it hit you. Kindness without requirements isn't kindness. It's a transaction with no receipt, a contract they never signed, and you never enforced. So you changed the terms. You stopped pouring into bottomless pits. You stopped confusing being liked with being loved. You stopped mistaking approval for safety. Now, your kindness has rules, and not everyone qualifies. You don't move from guilt anymore. You move from alignment. You don't say yes because you're afraid of losing someone. You say no because you finally realized losing yourself is the bigger crime. Your kindness now comes with a backbone. It requires accountability. If you hurt me, own it. Consistency. If you care, show up. Don't just say it. Live it. Respect, not fear, not control. Real, mutual, soul-deep respect. People say you're different now, that you've changed, that you're not as nice anymore. And they're right, Because your kindness is no longer a doormat, it's a door, and only the ones who knock with honor get to walk through. So no, you're not cold, you're not mean, you're healed, and your love now comes with locks, standards, and a warning label. Kind, not compliant. Loving, not blind. Available, but not to be used. And if that's too much for them, let them find someone else to bleed dry. Number 12. They're not scared of losing you. They're terrified it's already too late. They thought you'd come running when they pulled away. Instead, you vanished into evolution. Now they're realizing you didn't leave, you outgrew them. Let's call it what it is. They're not scared of losing you. They're scared that they already did. Scared that the version of you who bent, waited, begged, and bled for their comfort is gone. And not temporarily, permanently. That version, buried under the ashes of every betrayal they thought you'd just keep forgiving. They didn't lose a person. They lost power. They lost access. They lost the emotional lifeline they called love, but used like leverage. You used to carry their weight, their guilt, their dysfunction, their silence. You were the emotional mule, lugging pain that didn't even belong to you. You let them be loud with your energy and silent with their accountability. But now you're unavailable. Not because you're petty, not because you're angry, because you've made peace your permanent address, and they don't have the code anymore. This version of you, it wasn't born in comfort, it was forged in fire. Every heartbreak, every ignored boundary, every tear cried in silence because no one cared to ask if you were okay. That was the heat. And instead of burning down, you refined. You melted every illusion. You evaporated every delusion they had about you, always being there no matter how they treated you. You didn't just change, you evolved. And here's the thing about evolution. They don't send return tickets. You can't crawl back into an old skin once your soul has upgraded. And now that you've tasted self-respect, there's no more begging, no more over-explaining, no more tolerating the intolerable just to keep the peace that never existed in the first place. So let them talk, let them gossip, let them spin narratives about how you switched up. You're not explaining love anymore, you're embodying it. You don't need to be understood. You've chosen yourself in sacred, unstoppable silence. You don't react, you rise, and they can feel it, that unease they carry now. It's not about what you did, it's about what they didn't do when they had you. You didn't leave to hurt them, you healed to save yourself. And that's what haunts them the most. And now you see it. This was never about becoming someone new. It was about returning to the version of you they tried to bury, bold, boundaried, and fully awakened. You didn't just glow up, you grew out of everything that once dimmed you. Let them talk, let them choke. You owe no one your softness if it costs you your soul. If this message hit your spirit, pay it forward, like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments if you're claiming your power with no apologies. And share this with someone who's ready to stop breaking for others and start choosing themselves.